No one ever looks at her. Why should they? She is young and gangly. She sits quietly listening to the turmoil of the world around her. Rarely does she say anything. What's the point? No one listens anyway. So it is from this still vantage point that she comes to view life, full of movement and constant change, busyness, noise, arguments and rage, and has found it wanting. So, to guard herself from this uncertainty and turmoil, she has locked herself away. Deep down in the depths of her being, she has slammed closed the iron door of her heart, soldered up the keyhole and hidden the key. All that she holds dear is now safe and secure in the iron vault of her heart. Nothing and no one will ever get a glimpse of it or take it away from her. What is the it she speaks of? She is no longer sure. Time, like the wind, has a way of eroding, and she has not been spared the process. Sitting there on the rock on the tide line of the beach she once called home, the sun wrapping his warm arms around her like a long-lost friend, she is transported back to a time and a place she never thought she would or could ever remember. Suddenly she sees a picture of Sleeping Beauty, locked away, frustrated, silenced, longing, hoping and waiting. But it all gets too much for Beauty and she falls asleep. She realizes that she is like Beauty too in many ways, locked away, be it by her own design, to avoid the hurts and disappointments in her life, silenced by the words, "What do you know anyway?" hoping it would all end soon, longing to be able to be herself, frustrated, not knowing who that was, and waiting. Oh, the waiting, the long, lonely hours of silent waiting. She felt like Sleeping Beauty's castle too at times, stone cold, hard, overgrown, and entwined by the thorns of circumstance way beyond her control, but never alone. Lonely, yes, but never alone. There was always a comforting presence, like a huge snuggly blanket into which she could retreat when the thorns of life pierced her skin. This presence would privately encapsulate and enfold her with warmth and security, but something would always come and snatch that security from her and throw her back into the cold, harsh reality that is the world. But then there was always the memory of the day her prince arrived. It was an ordinary day, nothing different from yesterday or the day before, a day like every other. She had grown tired of waiting, and as the days turned to years, the longing turned to despair, and the frustration to resentment. As she sat imprisoned in this tower, a ray of light flickered through a crack in the stonework and settled on the keyhole of the iron vault that was her heart. And there it stayed for a few days, like a magnifying glass, burning a hole through the soldered keyhole. Then she heard it, the sound of galloping hooves, and there he was, coming towards her and her castle on the most magnificent stallion she had ever seen, long flowing mane and pure white coat. He seemed to have an agenda, and that agenda was her. Something moved within that metal vault of hers. She prepared to open the door, but it could not be opened wide enough for him to enter, due to the years of neglect and the thorny undergrowth that she had allowed to grow up around the castle. This did not deter him. He simply pulled the sword of the spirit from its sheath, which hung neatly at his side, and proceeded to cut away all that prevented the door from being swung open wide. She had never laid eyes on this man before, and yet, as she was engulfed by his sure, strong arms, a sense of familiarity, of peace, of homecoming. He was her homecoming king. Then he looked into her eyes. "I know you," he said. "I walked with you once long ago. I know you. The gleam in your eye is so familiar a gleam, and I know it's true that visions are seldom all they seem, but I know you. I know what you do. I loved you at the beginning of time, and I loved you eternally. You are mine." Having never heard such words before, that iron vault exploded into thousands of little pieces, embedding themselves in the walls of her heart. Now she would need a surgeon, and he knew just the one.